Hello and welcome to today's episode of Health University, where I have the good fortune of introducing my colleague, Dr. Monisha Bote. Dr. Bote is a best-selling author of The Anatomy of Well-Being and a distinguished authority for plant-based gut health, cellular health, and longevity. With quintuple medical board certifications, she leads in integrative medicine, functional culinary medicine, cytopathology, and the anatomic clinical pathology. That's a mouthful. You're a busy lady. She's the founder of WellKula, where she merges ancient wisdom with mind-body science to forge a transformative path toward optimal health and longevity. She's a graduate of NYU, Winthrop University Hospital, Cornell, and the Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine. She's featured in Shape, Reader's Digest, and Martha Stewart Living, and she shares her insights globally through drbonote.com, and that will be in the show notes, so you can always get through there. She serves on a variety of clinical advisory boards with profound interest in the nexus of nutrition and the microbiome, and this is really crucial as it relates to cellular health and mindfulness practices, which underscore her commitment to revolutionized well-being. So welcome, Dr. Bote. Thank you very much for coming today. We're delighted to have you. And the topic that we're going to cover is the microbiome and the power of plants, how plant-based nutrition supports your goals toward effortless fertility. Easy for me to say. So welcome. Did I miss anything?
No, absolutely. So
Great.
we're going to talk about food, the gut microbiome, and how it relates to fertility.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Which is crucial. Dr. Bote did a talk for our upcoming best prep for pregnancy, naturally or through IVF. It will air in March, and I really want to make sure that listeners register for that talk as well. That link will also be in the show notes because her talk was really important in educating us on why we should care about our microbiome before getting pregnant. So welcome, welcome. So happy to have you here. Obviously, the first question we always want to know, what inspired you in your journey to design this revolutionary program?
Yeah, absolutely. So great question. Thank you for having me here, Susan. Um, so I think when it comes to anything with health, like I've been in this field for over 30 years, and what I find is that there's a vast amount of information out there,
Mhm.
and it can become overwhelming and confusing, especially when you have one goal in mind. In this case, maybe fertility. But the importance is really recognizing and understanding that our body or our body's ecosystem is very much entwined. And it's not like, oh, if you're worried about fertility, let me just worry about my ovaries and my uterus. No, absolutely. You want to connect it back to your gut. You want to connect it to your brain. You want to connect it to other things because at the end of the day, they are all connected. And I think that's what kind of drives me to like share because we don't want to have our body parts siloed because treatment in itself can't be as efficacious if we're not looking at it through a holistic lens.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And it's true. We tend to just go to the the fertility labs, and then to, how many eggs or follicles are showing up in my ovaries, and how quickly can I retrieve them without giving a thought to what's the quality of my own health, which is then going to be reflected as it has to be in my ovaries and my follicles and the eggs that are growing within.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not a fertility doctor. You named what kind of doctor I am. I have 5 specialties, but I will tell you in the last 2 years, I have had 3 women who were having difficulty getting pregnant, all have baby girls.
Oh,
So,
fantastic.
and today, I'll share some of the things we looked at, some of the things that we did, and maybe hopefully inspire some other people to look at their body from a holistic viewpoint.
Absolutely. And working with you does not mean that you're going to have a baby girl, but it will mean you're going to have a healthy baby. Although, cheers for girls. I've got a daughter and I couldn't be happier being the mother of a daughter. So tell us about WellKula.
Yeah. So WellKula is the
WellKula,
name.
excuse me.
WellKula is the name of my company, and it basically translates into the word kula is a Sanskrit word for intentional community of like-minded individuals, and
Mm.
well translates for me into we live long in intentional community. So
Ah,
I think that that's really what the people who kind of gravitate towards me, they're ready to get off of autopilot and really live their life with purpose and intention. And yeah, so that's where the name WellKula comes from.
that is beautiful. So you mentioned that there's a Sanskrit word, and I know that your work integrates traditional medicines with conventional medicines. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I come from a South Asian background. So growing up, Ayurveda was a part of our background. All the things that my mom would say, like, oh, do this for a cold and flu, or do this if you have menstrual cramps, or do this. And, as a young individual, we rebel against our parents, like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. I've done chemistry, I've done biology, I'm pre-med, I know everything. Well, this is where ancient wisdom actually knows a lot more than modern medicine.
It's true.
So it did take me a while to go, you know what, all that stuff was so right. But so in that sense, I have had Ayurveda in my background for a really long time, and I've also trained in some Ayurvedic practices. And so um, from a whole body lens, Ayurveda looks at the mind, body, and spirit. And a big part of it is creating the body in balance and maintaining that balance, which requires the mind as well as the gut. So, which is easy to throw out of balance based off of our lifestyle. So I naturally just incorporate these things into my practice, into my own lifestyle, and I also incorporate a lot of Ayurvedic herbs as well. So,
Interesting, interesting. And having been part of the Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine, I'm sure that also helps you incorporate functional medicine, traditional medicine. I refer to Ayurveda and Chinese medicine, my practice, as traditional medicine with conventional medicine. How do you weave all three? What would a person expect when she comes to work with you?
so yes, so I weave conventional medicine, which is my formal training in anatomic, clinical, and cytopathology, which is really looking at the human body on a cellular level, what the tissue looks like under the microscope, with the integrative and functional practices where I train at the Andrew Weil Center,
Mhm.
as well as a culinary medicine practices as using food as medicine. So I interweave them into really looking at the person and what are they doing in 24 hours of their day? How
Mhm.
are they living their lifestyle? And really taking it back to, if we have a woman who's 30 years old and she's struggling and like looking at, well, is there an imbalance in your gut microbiome? Is there an imbalance? Definitely, the GYN is looking at, is there an imbalance in their hormones, right?
Right,
But
right.
guess what? The hormones are made from the gut. So,
Exactly.
so this is where it all comes back together, right? So
Exactly.
you can try and keep fixing estrogen, progesterone, all these levels for fertility, but without addressing the estrobolome, which is, in the gut, we're missing one of the key things for fertility.
Okay, so I'm sure listeners just heard estrobiome and said, "What the heck is that?" So tell us about estrobiome.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So this is where it goes into did you know, right? So I always like people to think of did you know this? And if you did not, you're going to learn about it, right? So did you know that your gut microbiome plays a crucial role in regulating your reproductive hormones? And if you did not know that as of yet, you will know that by the end of this episode. So research has told us that about 60% of estrogen metabolism occurs in the estrobiome, which is specialized gut bacteria that metabolize estrogen.
That's fantastic. Because again,
Yeah.
once again, we look to, okay, if we need to metabolize estrogen, we go to the liver, and we completely forget about the link, the symphony that is the liver, pancreas, large intestine, the whole biome.
Yeah. Absolutely. And when this biome is out of balance, it can result in things like PCOS. Like PCOS individuals have a hard time with fertility. It can result in endometriosis. I mean, when was the last time you heard endometriosis and gut microbiome? No, that's not what, that's not what usually people talk about. And then, of course, fertility, right? So infertility can be affected by the balance of your gut microbiome.
Well, both of those patterns that you just mentioned, PCOS and endometriosis, are some of the main causes that we know of infertility. But there are a lot of unexplained infertility cases, which is really hard for a person to walk away from, a failed IVF or another cycle lost and being told everything looks fine. So how would this person, what might be some of the signs and symptoms, or how would she know to begin to look at her microbiome and her biome?
So, for the person who's listening to this, if they are experiencing infertility, go look at your gut.
Okay.
It's that simple. Because looking at your gut microbiome is not that you are having digestive issues. Okay. Yes, you could have digestive issues. So you could have bloating, constipation, diarrhea, gas, all this kind of stuff. That is the more commonly thought things when we have an imbalanced gut microbiome. But you can be experiencing skin issues. You could be experiencing fatigue. You could be experiencing brain fog. So think of it more as anything you're experiencing symptomology wise, I could definitely connect back to your gut. And I think that goes back to, as you mentioned, people think of the liver, right, for processing estrogen, but the liver is very closely intertwined with the GI tract, right? So let me explain how this kind of works. So what's happening in this kind of gut microbiome axis is the liver breaks down estrogen, okay? And when it breaks it down, the bile, which the liver makes bile and the gallbladder holds bile, right? So the liver basically sends this estrogen into the bile, okay? The bile helps digestion. Okay, so the bile moves from the gallbladder and the liver into your GI tract, right? Into the intestines. And then in the intestines is where that gut bacteria, that specific estrobiome, release enzymes to change that processed estrogen into its active form. So if you don't have those gut bacteria who can change it into the active form, then you're not making the estrogen that you need to balance your body, right? So then this active estrogen is reabsorbed back into the bloodstream where it can travel to other parts of the body, for example, the uterus, and do its job. That's the simplest way for me to put it.
That's brilliant. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think listeners too, we really need to kind of break it down because, we all live in our bodies. And so when it's broken down to simplest forms, we can then understand it. Now, I'm going to shift gears just a little bit because I know you are a plant-based nutritionist. Maybe that's not the right word, but nutrition specialist as part of your medical
plant-based physician.
Okay, I've not heard that phrase before.
Yeah.
A plant-based physician. Okay, so tell us more about why you're recommending plant-based over either people here use the Mediterranean style diet, use keto diet, use carnivore diet.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of a plant-based diet specifically because it contains, it helps the body create something called short-chain fatty acids. Okay. So short-chain fatty acids are special molecules made by your bacteria, which help keep inflammation down in the body and keep the gut healthy. Okay. All right. So where are you going to get that from? You're going to get that.
Short-chain fatty acids keep inflammation down, and inflammation is a key impediment to our fertility. Yeah, thank you.
So by keeping inflammation down in the body, they basically can actually, in a way, help you get pregnant. So when we think about that, these are high fiber foods that are going to help do this. Now, what does not have fiber? meat,
Mhm.
dairy, and sugar does not have fiber. So if you have a very heavy or predominant meat, dairy, or sugar diet, say your grilled chicken and mozzarella and what's in sugar. I don't even know what people are eating these days for sugar, just ice cream,
And ice cream for dessert,
yeah,
exactly.
ice cream for dessert, right? So your gut microbiome is a more inflammatory type of gut microbiome.
Yeah. Those bugs are
So
starved. Mhm.
yes, yes. And as I mentioned, so same thing like the estrogen does. The short chain fatty acids also travel in the bloodstream
Mhm.
and can go to the body. And the pretty cool thing about short chain fatty acids is that they can influence gene expression.
Oh,
So
wow.
now, when you think of it this way, right? You want to have a healthy, happy baby and you want to influence its genes because maybe you're like, oh, well, my family's genetics are really, really bad.
Mhm.
Start now, like eat more plants. So, if you can't give up the other stuff, just eat more plants.
Okay. Thank you.
That,
Thank you for
that
that.
that's
Mhm.
really the focus is
Yep.
eat more plants.
Yep. Yep. And you have a cookbook as well, right? So we'll put that link to that in the show notes because again, sometimes people go, oh, I don't know how to cook interestingly and quickly because that's the other component of it. We're busy. So that's why we're grabbing these, frankenfoods, just because we're hungry, but we don't have time to prepare. But you have been able to demonstrate that you can prepare healthy meals quickly.
Really in like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Because if anybody tells me they're busy, I'm like, nobody is busier than me.
Yeah.
Trust me. If I can do it, you can do it.
There you go.
The other thing to keep in mind is that these short chain fatty acids also reach the brain and go
Mhm.
to the fetus. So they can support both the baby's brain and, your own mood and how you respond to things.
Mhm.
So keep that in
Mhm.
mind. This is just one thing that I've mentioned, short chain fatty acids.
Right. Thank you for sharing in our conversation here at Health University. One of the ways in which we help people improve their fertility is through our 5-element fertility quiz. Please click on the link below at yourfertilityquiz.com and take this short quiz. You'll receive a free report that includes easy to implement ideas to improve your whole health and your fertile health. Now let's return to our topic in today's episode. Well, I would say just listening to you, both short chain fatty acids and the paying attention to the biolome will also help the brain. And
Yes.
again, we don't want to just get pregnant. We want a healthy baby. We want a healthy pregnancy and postpartum and family and community and future. And listeners, I'm going to get on a little soapbox here. Your pregnancy isn't just for you. If you want to bring life into this world, and please do, there's a responsibility toward, I'm going to bring life into this world that's going to contribute to the benefit of all beings. I don't even want to say all humankind because it goes beyond that. So
Mhm.
it sounds, I don't know, philosophical or esoteric, but it's really true. You're creating now the healthy environment that will create the healthy human that you want to gestate and grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if you do choose to eat animal products, then make sure that they are hormone free.
So,
Because remember, hormones, whether, it's your own that you're producing or you're getting extraneous, will affect the body.
absolutely. Yeah. Hormone free and pesticide free, if I may. So
Absolutely.
organic, grass fed, grass finished, wild caught, free range, all the things.
Or just don't do it anyway, and then just eat more plants that are organic.
Organic, exactly, because we know that the pesticides will accumulate in the
Yeah.
umbilical cord blood, and we want to make sure that we're feeding this baby healthfully while he or she it is kind of free of barriers. We want to make sure that environment is as rich and nutritious as humanly possible.
Hmm.
So is there in term you talked about like the gut brain connection but we also had talked before about the nervous system, how this affects the actual nervous system. Can we kind of go down that little rabbit hole a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So the gut and brain is connected via the longest nerve in the body, the vagus nerve.
Hmm.
Okay. And this is a bidirectional communication, which means that it's communicating both ways, from brain down to gut, from gut up to brain, right? So think about it like this. You ever have like in your brain, you're like really, really nervous about something and you get these like butterflies in your stomach, right? That's the gut brain axis working.
Hmm.
Um, uh, so in this communication, it's also sending chemical compounds up and down, right? So some of these being neurotransmitters, for example, serotonin, your feel-good neurotransmitter, which is made in your gut.
Hmm.
Most
Hmm.
people don't think that.
Hear that again. Say that again. Serotonin.
So serotonin and your feel-good neurotransmitter is made in your gut, right? So if you don't have the gut microbiome that is going to produce this neurotransmitter, then of course your mood is going to be affected because there's not enough of it to circulate around in the body.
Hmm.
Um, so that's just one example. I think of it also from a state of when individuals are extremely stressed out and their body is in this constant sympathetic mode, that stress in turn influences the way the rest of their body is working. So, if you've ever had a conversation about, oh, I'm so stressed out and I'm trying to get pregnant, and you've timed down like the hours that you're going to have intercourse and this, and it's a very stressful situation. And usually what I have found is once people kind of let go of that and they're more relaxed is when all the feel good stuff starts happening, right?
Right.
Because your immune system gets suppressed when you are stressed out. So if your immune system is suppressed, then you're not going to be able, because there's only so much a body can do at a time. Like, kind of like if we are, oops, somebody's
Oh,
outside.
hello. We have a guest.
We have a guest visitor. I know.
Sweet.
Somebody's outside.
Sweet, sweet.
Um, okay, it's okay, love. Why,
That's
why don't you talk to Susan
right.
instead?
You can stay on. You can stay on
All
and
right.
keep
So,
our conversation. Yes. So when we're
so,
stressed, when
so
stressed.
I was saying about the stress response, right?
Mhm.
So, what was I saying though about
Well,
it?
you were saying that it will affect our immunity,
Oh,
and
yeah. So it
when
affects
our
your
immunity
immune
is
system, right? No,
low.
what I was saying was that the body can only do so much at a time, right? So when we are in sympathetic mode, the body is or stress mode, the body is sending all its blood flow, everything it needs to like our limbs and other things to like, keep our energy up, keep our body moving. But when we are in parasympathetic, which is rest or digest, then our body can actually digest our food,
Mhm.
support our microbiome, rest our brain,
And
so there is,
procreate. That's
and
what we can
procreate,
procreate.
right? So you want to procreate in rest and digest in
Mhm.
parasympathetic mode.
Yeah.
And that's why stress, like understanding that stress influences your fertility and how it's connected to the gut and brain is very critical.
Hmm. And listeners, I want to be respectful and mindful that I'm sure nobody wants to hear, and it's not sufficient to just say, "Oh, go chill out."
Oh,
Relax.
no, not at all. No, it has to be
But
intentional. You have to be
exactly,
purposeful,
exactly.
intentional. And the number one step is to recognize,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
once you recognize, then you want to have some tools how to address it
That's
because
yes. That's where I wanted to go
we,
next.
we,
What are
we
some of these
can't
tools?
avoid stress. Our like in the modern society is stressful society, right? But the tools are the keys to kind of manage it.
So meditation,
Yes.
yoga, walks
So I
in
am a
nature.
meditation teacher.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. Um, so meditation is something that I definitely teach. And, sometimes doing like the quiet meditation for somebody who's just starting is not the easiest thing. So
Mhm.
that's where I recommend breath work. So,
Mhm.
even a few minutes of simple 4-7-8 breath,
Mhm.
box breathing, pursed breathing, alternate nostril breathing, also
Mhm.
known as Nadi Shodhana, something like that can drop you into a parasympathetic state. And the thing is you don't want to do it when you're stressed. You want to do it as a regular practice.
Exactly.
So your body knows what to do when stress appears.
Yes, yes. And I think that that is key, that this is not about intervention, it's about prevention of this pattern, these habits that we have learned over time to be in chronic stress mode. I mean, goodness, now we're on Zoom all the time, which is a form of chronic stress mode. So if you can start your day and or end your day with some time to yourself, it's really truly feeding an aspect of yourself that is not food. It is well-being through meditations, guided imagery. And again, if you're someone who's like, you know what, I close my eyes, I start to breathe, even with all of these techniques, and my mind just goes a little bit, sideways, then a guided imagery or some lovely music, something that's
and that's okay that your mind goes sideways, right? Because it's kind of like, think about when we were at kids. I don't know why we made adulting so hard, but when we were kids, right, and we were in school and we had to prepare for a sport, like say there was like a tennis match. I was a tennis player, right? I didn't just show up on the court and be like, oh, I'm going to do this. No, there was prep that went into it, right? So for example, IVF prep, this is part of IVF prep that goes into it. Same thing when we had to study for a test, right? We didn't just go in and say, oh, I'm going to wing it. I know I got to do it. That's kind of how I want you to view mindful practices, whether that is meditation, whether that is breathing, any practice to kind of get your body into a parasympathetic state. It is a practice. And so it's a lifelong practice that you continue doing and you get better with time.
Yes. And it does change your brain chemistry. I mean, the science is there.
100%. So
out on the science.
It doesn't just change your brain chemistry, it actually changes your brain structure. So it will change the size of your amygdala, which is a almond-shaped part of your brain, which is it loves your sympathetic flight and fight because it loves to grow and feed off of that. But it will also change your prefrontal cortex, which is your rational thinking. So it changes the biochemistry, it changes the functionality, and therefore by changing the physiology as well. So multiple things going on there. So the reason to do it is multifold.
And multi-generational, because again, as you begin to do this now, you are influencing all the way down to your follicles and the eggs growing within and or the baby growing within. So it's I know I'm sounding a bit like a preacher, but really the onus is on us today to start making the changes for the future, not just for your own positive pregnancy test.
And if I kind of think about it, when I speak with some of the mothers that, we were helping with their gut issues, really, and the fertility kind of came along with it. The ones that have multiple kids, when we talk about what their state of mind was and what their nutrition was, the ones who had a better state of mind and a better nutrition have healthier kids.
Exactly. Exactly. So yes, we're you and I are preaching to the choir here, but I'm hopeful that the choir out there listening really gets it, because some of this is just common sense, but we've gotten so accustomed to a pill for this or a supplement for that mentality, when you have so much agency to be the that you want your future to be. So please listen to this again and again and again. Is there anything that I haven't asked that you want to say, oh, I really want the audience to have a chance to consider something else?
So the other thing I want you to think about is most women know that they need to take their prenatal vitamins, right? But as you mentioned, I don't want vitamins to be a replacement for a healthy diet. So when we are thinking of prenatal foods, for example, folate-rich foods, and you can do that on a plant-based diet. So I would mention things like lentils and beans. I remember I was talking to some patients last week, and I'm like, oh, so when was the last time you had some lentils and beans? And they're like, had to think about it. And they were like, oh, 2 weeks ago I had, and I'm like, I'm eating them every
every
day.
day.
And you should be eating them every day. Because then it almost makes you wonder, well, what is the person putting on their plate instead? And it comes back to that ultra processed food,
Exactly.
right? Anything out of a box, anything out of a freezer.
Yep. Yep. And it's so
So
satisfying. So you don't need to eat so much. And that's the other problem, right? We have an obesity epidemic because we're starving, because we're not actually giving our body the nutrients it
well,
needs.
we're overfed and we're micronutrient starved. Yes. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. We are definitely overfed and micronutrient starved.
Yeah.
So I want you to know some of the nutrients. So folate, great sources of that would be your lentils and your beans. Iron, that's another thing I know women are worried about with like, oh, if I don't eat animal products, I'm not going to get enough iron. Once again, lentils and beans, great source, but tofu.
Yeah.
Don't forget about tofu.
Mhm.
I mean, I ate tofu for the last 2 days.
Mhm.
I'm probably going to eat it again later today because I have some leftovers. But
Mhm.
tofu is a great source. Quinoa is a great source. Simple. You don't need to like make things like, I mean, the salad that I just made today is chopped um, kale, purple cabbage, Brussels sprouts, cucumbers, all thinly sliced.
Wow.
And
Was it
I
raw?
had that with
Did you cook it?
baked sweet potato. That
Oh,
was my
yum.
lunch. Right?
Yum.
Super easy. You don't
Yeah.
need to make like food complicated. It's eat the rainbow.
Mhm.
Um,
Eat
so
the
then
rainbow. Yes,
iron was
indeed.
one.
Yep.
Um,
Folate, iron.
zinc. Zinc is
Mm-hmm.
another one, right? Because zinc is very important for the immune system. My favorite source of zinc would be pumpkin seeds,
Mm-hmm. I
right?
love
So don't underestimate nuts and seeds,
it.
right? Well, nuts, you got to be careful with because the amount of calories, but seeds like hemp seeds, chia seeds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds,
Mm-hmm.
sesame seeds, throw them on anything and everything.
Mm-hmm. And eat them as seeds, not the oils, because you really want the
Oh,
seed.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Seeds,
Yeah.
right? So the pure form of seeds.
Mm-hmm.
Omega-3, so
Mm-hmm.
that's once again where those seeds are going to come in, right? Because here's the thing is omega-3s keep inflammation down in the body. When
Excuse me.
inflammation is down, it can regulate your hormones, it can improve egg quality, and it promotes healthy blood flow to the organs, right?
Absolutely.
So seeds and then vitamin D. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
people even living in the state of Florida are vitamin D deficient. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
this is where we might have to do some fortified plant milks
Mm-hmm.
or mushrooms
Mm-hmm.
that have been exposed to sunlight is a good source of that.
Okay.
Or supplementation is a way to do it. Vitamin C, very important. Why would somebody be deficient in vitamin C? I mean, but people are
Yeah.
because you want to know the reason why? Because vitamin C is part of the major antioxidants, and because we have so much exposure to uh, chemicals, things that create oxidative stress in our body, we need even more vitamin C than we think we need.
Okay. All right. All right.
Yeah.
Noted.
Um, then let me see. I think those were the big ones. CoQ10 is another one. I mean, these are things I test for too. Like
Yep.
I'm
Yep. Same.
testing
Yeah.
for these things. CoQ10 is really important for the mitochondria inside your cells, right? So mitochondria, which maybe somebody doesn't know what that is. So if they're seeing this, here's my little human cell. I love to pull up my little human cell model. You
Yeah.
got
I love
37 trillion of these in your
it.
body. They're super small. They're not this big. But inside these are little mitochondria that produce energy from the food we eat and the oxygen we breathe.
Mhm.
And it's not just energy that we think for ourselves, but it's actually energy for our cells.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
So CoQ10 is very important there. And you can get that from spinach, broccoli, cauliflower,
Mhm.
whole grains.
Excellent. Excellent. So see that it shows us that nutrition really can help prevent infertility, reverse infertility. Well, I won't call it infertility. I'm going to call it subfertility because there are structural issues sometimes where there's no amount of, sprouts that are going to change it. But when it is physiological, it's possible to reverse that trend and to really heal. So thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been so cool. And again, I'm going to insist that everybody at least take a look at the book, at the cookbook, because it makes it easy for you. It just lays it out for you. And come attend and register for Best Prep for Pregnancy, naturally or through IVF, where Dr. Benoit will be one of our guest speakers and will be doing a cooking demonstration. So there you have it. Get started now because March is a little bit away. But I want to make sure that you know you've got the resources here because we really are arms linked in wanting to make sure that you have the dreams fulfilled for a healthy pregnancy, a healthy baby, and a healthy family. So thank you so much, Dr. Monisha. I'm really, really so grateful for you joining us today. And I hope that we get to kind of have a part two at some point, because I know that this just was the tip of the iceberg for what you have to offer here, especially when it comes down to cell health. So
Yes, absolutely. We can talk about phytoestrogens on a whole nother
there we
conversation.
go. There we go. We'll pick it up later. So thank you so much for your time. I know that you're East Coast, and so it's getting a little bit late, and I want to be respectful of yours and the viewing audience's time. So we're going to call it a wrap, and we will say for the time being at Health University, class dismissed.